Hello and welcome to our webinar. We'll be starting in approximately 1 minute. Welcome to the webinar. We'll be starting in about half a minute. Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to state that from coast to coast, Parkinson Canada acknowledges the ancestral and unceded territories of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples. To access closed captioning, click on the CC button and then click on Show Subtitle. And now, welcome everyone to this month's webinar, Ask Us, Your Parkinson's Questions Answered. My name is Donna Greening, and I'm a Programs and Services Coordinator at Parkinson Canada. Today, I'm joined by members of our Information and Referral team. Please note that the information shared during the webinar is for education purposes and is not intended to replace the advice or instructions of a professional healthcare practitioner or to substitute for medical care. Contact a qualified healthcare practitioner if you have questions concerning your own care. Whether you are newly diagnosed, have been living with Parkinson's for many years, or care for a loved one with Parkinson's, you will most likely have questions about your journey. Every day, Parkinson Canada's Information and Referral team members provide free and confidential non-medical information about symptoms, treatments, how to access care and services, and they also help connect you to resources, community programs, and services that can help you. Joining us today are Shannon Harrison, Carrie Lynn Goods, and Lucia Fathers, all members of the Information and Referral team, as well as Bryce Perry, Manager of Information and Referrals. They're here today to answer your Parkinson's and care partnering questions. Because so many questions have already been submitted, we will be focusing on answering as many of them as possible during today's event. So for this month, the Q&A tab is closed. If you have additional questions for the team after the conclusion of the webinar, or a question you submitted was not posed, we encourage you to contact the team directly. We will share their email address and phone number a few times during the webinar, and that same contact information will also be included in our follow-up email to everyone. All resources and links mentioned during the webinar will also be sent in that email, so there's absolutely no need to take any notes. And now, without further ado, welcome Shannon, Carrie Lynn, Lucia, and Bryce, and let's dig right into some questions. The first one is for Carrie Lynn. It was asked, I can find information on many of the symptoms of Parkinson's, but I'm struggling to understand the cognitive aspects and the dementia that's part of my spouse's Parkinson's.
Thanks, Donna, and welcome to everybody. Yes, it's true. Parkinson's can alter many regions of the brain that affect cognitions. Some of those areas that may be affected can be your executive functioning. So that can look like decision making, problem solving, multitasking, or communication realm. Following a conversation sometimes can be tricky. Word finding, which also compounds and impacts communication, or comprehension, following something with maybe too many details, and then memory. So holding a train of thought or difficulty focusing sometimes can be problematic. If these are some of the changes that your family's experiencing, I encourage you to make sure your doctor knows and to ask about some professional supports that might be available to your family as you navigate that together. I think another element that's sometimes not understood is that um, about pardon me, dementia may also be a part of Parkinson's, and approximately 50% or so people living with Parkinson's can also experience some form of hallucination or delusions as the disease progresses. It's important to know, though, that hallucinations and delusions may be a part of Parkinson's, but any sudden onset or a sudden change in that realm is not generally Parkinson's related, so should be addressed promptly and with a doctor and or medical team, and can be symptomatic of other really serious health related concerns. So please make note of that. We classify a hallucination, just for understanding, is something that someone can see, hear, smell, or feel that isn't there, whereas a delusion is a false belief that's not based in reality or fact. The reality is the longer you live with PD, the greater the likelihood you may experience hallucinations and delusions as part of your Parkinson's. That's where having a specialist, making sure they're familiar with your changes and progressions in the disease and with any questions. And sometimes what we use an umbrella term of allied healthcare professionals as a team can be really supportive to you in that area. So that can look like a social worker, a clinical resource nurse, a psychologist. All those pieces can be really helpful and valuable. I would like to draw attention to our support groups, especially for care partners when we're talking about hallucinations, delusions, and cognitive changes. A care partner specific support group may be of value to you in support, and specifically maybe more along the lines of our advanced stages care partnering group. We do have a webinar from 2022 on our YouTube channel called Shedding Light on Cognitive Changes in Parkinson's by Dr. Clarkson. We have a care partner manual that might be supportive in that way as well. And I think sometimes when you're talking about dementia, Alzheimer's Society of Canada may also be a really great resource and supportive measure to take and contact. There is also a practitioner named Teepa Snow, who we're familiar with, and she has some videos on YouTube. It's called A Positive Approach to Care that is really practical. Now, it's not Parkinson's specific, but may be really helpful in living life and caring for someone who are maybe experiencing cognitive impairments and hallucinations.
Well, that's really great information, Carolyn. Thanks so much. The next question will be directed to Shannon. Some folks have asked, they have Parkinson's and they find that their balance isn't so great and they sometimes trip. What should or what can they do?
Well, great. Thanks, Donna. I think we actually had a couple of questions around falls and balance issues. So balance issues are really common in Parkinson's disease. And as you all know, the danger is that it could lead to a fall. And a fall could be an injury, a fracture that could result in hospitalizations and then changes in your level of independence. So really, we want to do everything we can to prevent falls. I do want to highlight, as you'll hear over and over again, that some symptoms may not be related to Parkinson's. So balance issues may be related to another condition you have. For example, it could be arthritis or a previous injury. So just keep that in mind as well. Don't blame everything on Parkinson's. I am going to really focus on Parkinson's and balance issues here in answering this question. I think it's really important to understand some of these symptoms that can contribute to falls in Parkinson's disease. For example, you may have slowness and stiffness, so that can affect your ability to correct yourself if there's an uneven level in pavement. Shuffling steps, so not taking those big steps, narrows your center of gravity, so it may be harder to correct balance. Posture as well, with if you are bent over a little bit or you have a posture where you're leaning over a bit more, that means your head is not sort of in line with your body. That can change your balance as well. Some people have blood pressure changes. So if some people with Parkinson's, when they're sitting down and they stand up, they will find that they have lightheadedness and maybe feel a little bit dizzy. And of course, that can affect your balance. Fatigue as well. And we don't want to forget about medication and their side effects. Sometimes there's side effects that can make people feel a little bit more unbalanced. And then as well, medication on and off time. So you might see whenever your medication is wearing off that your balance feels a little bit poor, or you're more stiff and you're more slow. So the recommendations would be really to see a physiotherapist who can assess your gait and make some recommendations, because everybody with Parkinson's is really unique. So there's some physiotherapists that have taken specialized training and know Parkinson's really well. I'll mention it briefly. There's one called LSVT Big and PWR, and as Donna mentioned, she's going to send up a follow-up email. They have databases where you can search for a specialized physiotherapist. Also, just check with your specialist to ensure your medication is optimized, and also with your family doctor to rule out any other causes that may be affecting your balance. We do have a really great book, and I have them right here with me, Fall Prevention, or Preventing Falls. And we have a webinar that went along with that about in 2020. Really great resources. And again, we'll send out an email with links to these resources.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Lucia, the next one will be for you. A lot of people have asked what kind of exercises they should be doing.
So, as with exercise, not only is it important for everyone like you and I, but it's also important for people living with Parkinson's disease. It plays a key role in maintaining brain health. So some research shows that people with Parkinson's disease who exercise fare better in the long run than people with PD who don't exercise. There is some evidence that actually it can slow the progression. And I know it's not always easy to get started, but sometimes if you find someone else to exercise with, it can give you that motivation that you need. And it's important to understand that no one type of exercise is better from another. It's best to find something that is safe for you and that you enjoy and will continue to do. And with exercise, it can improve your symptoms, such as reducing your motor symptoms like stiffness, slowness. It could even reduce tremors. And it also helps with the non-motor symptoms, such as if you're having sleep problems or depression, for example. It can actually boost your mood and help with fatigue. So the earlier you start, the better it is. Maybe you can find a virtual option that may help you find something that you can enjoy. So it helps with your posture, your balance, your flexibility and strength, and of course, your endurance. So some types of exercises, you can do dance, it can be yoga, perhaps boxing or Tai Chi. All those things are helpful, but it is important that you do talk to your doctor before starting any type of exercise, because they want to make sure that it's going to be safe for you. Another thing you can do besides exercise, because they kind of go hand in hand, is seeing a physiotherapist. They can do an assessment and make some exercise recommendations to help with your mobility and balance. Example, getting out of bed or putting on a coat, perhaps reaching things. There are some webinars, for example, Get Moving and Find Your Fit, which is really great. And again, as Shannon had mentioned, you can look for specialized physio through LSVT, BIG, and PWR. And there's so many different options of exercise. It includes, you don't have to be standing. You could also do some seated classes. There's also recorded classes, Zoom classes, and of course in person. And, as we talked about earlier, joining a support group is very beneficial because you can get tons of information from a support group with others living with Parkinson's disease who might be able to direct you on other resources to find exercise and physio. And with that, I'm going to introduce Bryce to talk a little bit about our Care Finder.
Awesome. Thanks, Lucia. Incredible advice. And one of the things, we hear about exercise being good for us. We hear that support groups, join support groups. And one of the big questions is where do you find support groups? Where do you find exercise programs? Where do you find these things? Well, we're excited. And if you haven't heard, Parkinson Canada is really excited to announce or let you know that we have a new program, and it's called Care Finder. And Care Finder is an online directory designed to connect people searching for programs and services um, in their community and right around them. So if you go to parkinson.ca, there's a link off to Care Finder. And Care Finder, you can find home care, you can find exercise programs, boxing, support groups, speech therapy, physiotherapy, anything that you need, any program and services that's Parkinson specific or Parkinson related. You can type your city name in, and then you can search by the specific program or service, or just anything around you in your area. And just so you know, we are what we call in the beta phase. So we're kind of pre-launching it to the community in hopes that that you can help us build it. So pass it along, let other service providers know if you have a specific person you go see for physio or exercise, like send them the link and send them to us so that we can include them in the directory. And I think it's really important to point out that this isn't just a directory that anybody can sign up to and say, yes, I've got something for somebody with Parkinson's. This is actually every single listing that's in there has been vetted by our team and gone through them and to ensure that it's a quality program offering actual specific Parkinson related things. So check it out, carefinder.ca. Help us build it, help us grow it, and go and find anything you need, support groups, exercise programs, speech therapy, whatever it is you need, it's there for you.
Thank you, Lucia and Bryce. Shannon, I'm going to send the next one to you. Several people asked that they've been recently diagnosed with Parkinson's and their family is concerned about them driving. Can they still drive?
Well, thanks, Donna. This is a really difficult conversation because a decision to give up your license does represent a big loss in independence. But ultimately, it's really important to put safety first. Research shows that most people outlive their ability to drive safely by several years, and usually related to vision changes. But most drivers don't plan to retire from driving as they age. Driving, it's a really complex task. It requires you to be aware at all times, to be able to respond quickly to constantly changing circumstances. And anything that affects your ability to drive should be taken into serious consideration. So, for example, with Parkinson's, mental clarity can be affected, the focus, and also that ability to multitask. And if you think about driving, it involves a lot of multitasking, and slowness of movement may impact your reaction time. Also, changes in visual perception may impair your ability to judge the distance between the cars. So Parkinson's, as you all know, is very individual and differs from person to person. The progression differs from person to person too. And so the ability to drive safely will be different for each person as well. So at some point, though, after being diagnosed with Parkinson's and before your symptoms become too advanced, you should consider having your driving skills properly assessed. Talk to your healthcare team about this. They will be watching for indicators that you're not safe to drive. Talk to also your family and your friends, maybe asking a family member or friend to come driving with you. So as a driver, keep an open mind on the feedback you have, and as the passenger helping out, be gentle, but honest. So really, in summary, all people living with Parkinson's will eventually have to let go of driving. Timing is different for each person. I think it's really important to set a plan for that when the time when you do have to give up your license. We do have some good resources. I keep these all by my desk. We have a book, driving book, and a webinar that we did with it. In the driving book, it's got a list of some of the red flags that may be indicators that your days of driving are coming closer to an end. I think it's really important, as I said, put safety first. There are also driving assessment centers across Canada. You can do an internet search on this. Be sure to ask about the cost because they are quite expensive.
Thank you, Shannon. Carrie Lynn, a question that people are sometimes hesitant to ask and discuss is around post-mortem body donations for science. How would someone arrange this if this is something that they were interested in?
Yeah, thanks, Donna. This is a sensitive and complex conversation that does require clear planning and communication. We have done some looking and investigating and basically speaking with your specialist or your healthcare team to pre-plan is the best course of action. And again, reiterating the importance of clear communication. Some hospital facilities have information and specific details for organ donation and or brain donation, but frankly, for the purposes of Parkinson's research right now, only the brain is what is of interest to researchers. And unfortunately, currently there is not a central repository for brain tissue or the bodies of people living with PD in general. We tell a living client that speaking to your specialist, as I mentioned earlier, and if not, trying to connect because they're often the ones that are involved in the research. So asking there is probably a good place to start. These arrangements need to be made far in advance as the harvesting of the brain tissue needs to be done very quickly after death and can only be done in conjunction with certain specialized clinics. So certain specialists may be connected with various schools of anatomy, for example, that could be help arrange for the collection. And if you would like further information or to talk this through a little bit further, please contact us and we can share the information. And we do have some of the universities and research centers that are involved.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks.
Lucia, great. So someone asked, my partner's Parkinson's is progressing and my life as a care partner is becoming more challenging. How do I get my friends and family to understand what living with Parkinson's is like? And how do we get more support?
We get this asked quite a bit, and it's important that you shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help or be afraid or too proud to ask for help. It's so important to understand that just like you, when you offer help and support for others when they need it, they're there to help you as well. So friends and family often ask, hey, how can I help? It's important to engage your family and friends and help them understand both your needs as a caregiver and as someone living with Parkinson's. And it's important for them to understand the different symptoms of the disease. Maybe there's certain things that they can do for you. Trying to arrange scheduled visits so you can get out. It's so important that you prioritize your needs. Because in order to help someone you care about living with Parkinson's disease, you need to take care of yourself as well. So examples, make sure you're getting enough sleep. And remember, the days aren't set in stone. Possibly exploring breathing and meditation techniques. Or again, as we discussed earlier, finding a support group for care partners. It's important to understand that there's others that are going through the same thing you are, and they can add that extra level of support. And it's also a great way to meet people and to stay socially connected. You need to understand that you're not alone. Some other things you can do, because maybe there aren't any family or friends around, consider possible home care options, government or private. It is different in each province, so it's important to ask. You can ask your doctor for a referral, or you may be able to self-refer. But you need to check with your provincial home care program. There may be some respite care as well that they may offer. And respite is a program that allows relief for a short period from your duties as a care partner. It's that extra level of support so you can take a break. We do have some resources. As we spoke about earlier, there's that care partnering book, which is excellent. We also have some webinars. As I had mentioned earlier, we don't just have support groups for people living with Parkinson's, but we also have support groups for care partners. And we also have Every Victory Counts care partner worksheet, which is online. So things like that can help.
Thank you very much. So Bryce, the next one I'm going to direct to you because you've got personal experience with this. A couple people asked, how do I tell my family about my diagnosis?
Great. That's a great question. And reality is there's not a simple answer, right? So really it's an individual thing. I think there's two things to consider. A is when and B is how. And from personal experience, I'll say it from this standpoint. Parkinson's disease is a very isolating disease. It's a disease that wants you to, not go in public and not tell people, or, be ashamed of, or be embarrassed of your movements that you can't control. But one of the things that I would say is this: is I was diagnosed at 40 years old, so about 13 years ago, and at that time, when you talk family, I had two teenagers and one preteen, and of course, and my extended family, mothers and fathers, and also people at work. If I could give any advice, maybe rather than great direction, would be this: is that I did for the longest time, I tried to keep it very to myself and not let people know. And I think in my head I thought if I didn't speak it and didn't tell people, maybe I didn't really have it, or maybe it would go away, or maybe it wouldn't be there. But I will say this: as confusing as it is for somebody to be diagnosed with Parkinson's, because you don't know what the future looks like, you don't know, you have so many questions, right? And you become this Google and keyboard warrior, where you're trying to, Google things and try to figure out, what does this mean to me? And how much longer can I work? How much longer can I be able to do this? Am I going to be able? For me, it was like, am I going to walk my daughter down the aisle? Will I be able to walk? Will I, all that kind of stuff. And the truth is, had I known that Parkinson Canada had a toll-free number that I could call and ask those questions to, and I was talking with my neurologist just a couple of days ago, and he was questioning me on when I said that, we see our neurologist once every 6 months, and we got, it's like for 20 minutes, and you don't even think of all the things. And then I said, when you leave this, you get told you get diagnosed with this crazy disease that has no cure, and it's going to be progressive, and it's just like this wave of emotions, and you don't know things. And he asked me, what could I do better? What can we do better to support you after you get that diagnosis? And I said, you could have told me anything you wanted for like the next 35 minutes after you told me I had it, and I would have went right over my head, because I was just in this like, what the heck just happened to me phase. But had I known, though, that it's a few days for myself, just to kind of let everything kick in and understand what was happening to me, had I known there was this number that I could call, and it was someone would answer the phone, and I could ask the silly questions. Maybe I would be too embarrassed to ask my doctor, or it was almost like more anonymous. It's like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I, what's this going to look like in 5 years? Can I walk my daughter down the aisle? Where they could kind of guide me into not just information, but information I could trust, right? It wasn't just like me hoping this Google thing was right, or hoping this article on this was correct, but it was actually things that were proven, and they could send me books, they could send me stuff like that, that I would have jumped all over it in a heartbeat. I would have been just, okay, great, let me save me time and save my energy on trying to find everything myself, and let somebody who does this do it, help me go through it. And I say all that to say this: is that the only advice I would give is be prepared when you talk to your family, because as many questions as you have, they're going to have the same questions, and they're going to look right at you and try, and they'll want you to have the answer. So my thought would be this: is be prepared. You don't tell anybody or your family, until you are at least comfortable with it, that you can at least express yourself on what it is. And maybe, again, you don't have all the answers, but you have some answers. Like, what, I'm not this, yeah, I got this diagnosis, but it's not a death sentence, or I got this and this is how this works. And at the same time, also know that there are so many supports for that, your caregivers, for your loved ones. Same thing, what, I don't have all the answers. And that's the other thing, the other piece of advice I would say is, we don't have all the answers. So don't try to be the answerer to your children, your family, your parents. And like when they ask you questions, well, I don't know, it means this, it means this, where you can say, what, I don't have all the answers, I'm dealing with this and I'm learning as I go, but here's an 800 number you can call, or here's an email address you could ask them, because our team is not just available for the person who's with it, but their family, extended family as well. So I think I took a real long loop to answer your question, Donna, but the reality is you have to be in a good space, when you do it. And then part two is, don't wait long, bring them in. They're going to notice things are different with you. You might be depressed, you might be feeling down. They're going to see changes in you. You can bring them along in the journey. And then the other thing I would suggest is your loved ones, include them in things. Take them to your neurology appointments. Take them on the call when you call and ask for questions and resources, and include them in that, because they sometimes have better questions than you do, as well as they need that support and they need that help to walk you through it. And I was talking to a lady at the Winnipeg Engagement event this Monday, and she said, when you're a care partner of somebody who's been diagnosed, you've been diagnosed too. You're part of that journey. So the more you know, the more knowledge you can get, and the more help you can get, the better you are to relay it back.
Right. And we've got some groups for people who are new to their journey. And also, Bryce, we've got some groups where people with Parkinson's can attend with their family members too. Right.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, for me, again, at the very beginning, had I known, when you look back, it's like when you have your kids and you tell your kids everything and you try to, help them. And then when you get older, you're like, oh my gosh, I would have listened to my parents. Had I known, again, I'm in year 13 or 14 of this journey. Had I known, or had the fortitude to go to a group or to go and ask for that help and not be nervous or ashamed or feeling silly about it, I would have done that a lot quicker, and it would probably save me a few years of being down on myself as well. So best advice I can give is get involved in the groups, get involved in what you can do. The earlier the better, because you'll just gain that much more knowledge for sure. So support groups are amazing.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thanks, Bryce. Shannon, someone asked that they've noticed that their swallowing has become more difficult and is asking what could or should they do?
I'm really glad somebody brought this up because swallowing issues, they can be very serious. So the action of swallowing is actually quite complex when you think about it. There's so many muscles involved that we don't even think about, as well as there's different areas of the brain that are involved to coordinate swallowing. So swallowing can be affected at any stage of Parkinson's, and it can change with time. So it does need to be evaluated quite frequently. So failure to swallow properly can lead to choking, and also it may lead to aspiration pneumonia, where that is when the things go down the wrong way. So something may go in down the wrong tube and maybe into your lungs. So that could lead to a lung infection or pneumonia, which is very serious. Swallowing problems can also lead to weight loss. Maybe you're maybe a bit afraid to eat different types of foods, so you may be losing weight, malnutrition, and also dehydration. So some signs that you're having trouble swallowing could include like coughing during a meal, clearing your throat frequently, also feeling that food and pills are not going down quite right. They may be feeling like they're getting stuck. You may also have sort of a wet or a gurgled voice during a meal. And if you notice any of those things, please get a referral from your doctor or your specialist to a speech language pathologist. These healthcare professionals can do a swallowing assessment. Some of them will just do an exam with you, a sort of a clinical exam. They can watch you and test you with different foods to see how you're swallowing, but they may also need to order tests so that they can better observe your swallowing. How are things going down? They can also review some strategies to help you avoid choking, may suggest avoiding certain food, or suggest some posture changes. So it's really important, if you notice any of these, to talk to your doctor and get a referral to a speech language pathologist. Actually, we have a really great webinar that we did a couple of years ago, Dr. Ianessa Humbert, just a fantastic webinar on swallowing. And we also have an info sheet that you can find on our website. I did also wanted to quickly address drooling. I think there was a question that came in about that as well. Drooling is fairly common in Parkinson's. About 1 in every 2 people may experience some drooling. And this happens because your mouth may be moving less, and that autonomic urge, or we don't even feel it, but that autonomic symptom of just swallowing every so often is less. So the saliva may kind of pool in your mouth more. And if you have changes in your posture, possibly like if you're leaning forward more, then it could come out of your mouth, maybe onto your chin or in the corners of your mouth. Generally, it's more bothersome than dangerous. However, it is possible to choke on saliva. So again, speak to your specialist about this. There are medications that can help with this symptom. You can find more information in our Every Victory Counts book. So we have a book that looks like this, and you can find that on our website. You can download a digital copy or order a hard copy. Also, Intro Guide, they have a couple pages on it in here. And as I mentioned, the webinar, Dr. Ianessa Hebert that did our swallowing also does a little section on drooling as well. So really helpful resources.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Carrie Lynn, someone asked, they said their voice has changed and people are always asking them to repeat what they're saying. Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, symptoms of Parkinson's that sometimes can cause some of those communication challenges look like softened speech, so that change or softening in our voices. Sometimes we can have some unclear speech happening. A masked facial expression is not uncommon with Parkinson's. And then coming back to some of those cognitive changes that I mentioned earlier. So difficulty concentrating, following a conversation, slower thought process equaling slower response times. And then that forgetfulness or difficulty finding words can compound that as well. Some practical tips in navigating this as gracefully as possible. Choose times when the medications are on to have those important conversations or maybe more complex, lengthy conversations. And that allows the person to give some time to respond. As Shannon had said, sometimes speech therapy and voice exercises can also be beneficial when it comes to using our voices. So again, asking your doctor or specialist about connecting and referral to a speech language pathologist. Now in this world that we're navigating, there are many online resources that can be offered by other organizations that can include some recorded voice exercises, information related to speech difficulties. One of the specialized training sort of searches and programs that we're familiar with that may be available is called LSVT Loud, and you can search regionally on that website as well. It's a rather intensive program, and it can be expensive. So if you have insurance, check to see if this would be covered. Some of those speech language pathologists offer this program virtually as well. There is speak out programming. Sometimes some regional sort of groups can have singing and choir sort of options that can be really enjoyable and beneficial as well. The Parkinson Voice Project. Bryce had mentioned the Care Finder option. That's starting to be populated with see what you can find in your region there. And contact us if you want to connect to any more of those resources and supports that may be available.
Great, thanks, Carrie Lynn. Lucia, we get a lot of questions about nutrition. So do you have any nutritional tips for people with Parkinson's?
So with nutrition, there's no real specific diet with Parkinson's because no two people are the same. So each person is going to react differently to different types of food. So, but just like exercise, it's important to have proper nutrition. It's not just good for everyone, but for people living with Parkinson's disease, it's very important. So your diet should include be high in fruits, a lot of vegetables and fiber to help with your digestion system and help with constipation because that's a common problem with people living with Parkinson's disease. So it's important to increase your water intake and increase your fiber. That may help. We do have a webinar that actually addresses some of the concerns and recommendations for constipation. But if there's any changes, it's important to discuss that with your family doctor or healthcare team, especially if you have any other medical issues, including perhaps diabetes or even heart conditions. That's when they may refer you to a dietitian who can offer you advice and information tailored to you. We do have a publication called Every Victory Counts. And on chapter 11, it actually discusses some research around the Mediterranean diet. So the Mediterranean diet can actually boost your energy and it promotes heart and brain health. So that diet focuses on vegetables, fruits, grains, beans, and nuts. But just with with just vegetables and fruit, it's also important to still get your protein. But protein can interfere with your medication absorption, but it's still important for good nutrition. So Create a schedule to manage your medication and protein intake throughout the day so you're not eating your high protein simultaneously with your levodopa. The literature and research that we have suggests levocarb on an empty stomach. So ideally, you would take each dose of your levodopa 1 hour before a meal to give it time to move through your stomach, or 2 hours after, because that's the amount of time it takes for food to empty the stomach. So with nutrition, some people find that they're losing weight because it's quite common in people living with Parkinson's disease. So there could be various causes to that, such as malnutrition, because you're not getting enough food, perhaps nausea, vomiting, or just not hungry, lack of appetite, or there could be a decreased taste and change in sense of smell. And perhaps even, like Shannon had spoke about, difficulty swallowing and maybe your tremors. But it varies from person to person. The best thing you can do is talk to your healthcare professional so they can create a plan to manage your calorie intake. They may even refer you, like I spoke about again, to a dietitian who can offer information on perhaps a high calorie, dense food diet.
That's great information. Thanks so much, Lucia. Carrie Lynn, someone asked, I know my spouse needs to be exercising, but they have zero motivation to do absolutely anything and seem so lazy. I'm frustrated and feeling resentful. What can I do?
Yeah, we get versions of this commonly asked, and I think one of the lesser known pieces or that's understood about Parkinson's is that apathy can affect up to 50% of people living with Parkinson's. And apathy is a feeling of low motivation and is believed to be due to the problems with the parts of our brain that react or reward us when we do something, and those are no longer active. So this is a concern that's often brought up by care partners, just as we received there. When someone's apathetic, few to no emotions may be present. There's an absence or suppression of things like passion and excitement, often a reduced interest in and curiosity in people and activities around them. Those spontaneous interactions with others and our pets and things that we would have normally shown affection for can be paused or, sort of abbreviated. A lack of motivation and decreased initiation of activities, a flat affect. So we spoke about facial masking earlier, and sometimes it can show us and present as emotional indifference. And really, this makes it really difficult on our family, friends, and care partners. So it may be a part of the Parkinson's and is not always understood as that, rather than just being lazy. Apathy can result in changes in mood and thinking, and then in turn, participation in cognitively demanding situations. This results in some little or no goal-oriented behavior, like working out. And apathy can often go along parallel with cognitive decline, and it's kind of tricky to separate out anxiety, apathy, and depression. Those can be parts of all those pieces of Parkinson's that are maybe a little bit less known and can go together commonly. And yes, those can be parts that are really difficult for our families and care partners and people who care for us. In 2021, Parkinson Canada, we did a webinar called Motivation in Parkinson's Disease, a discussion on apathy and impulsivity. So I encourage people to watch that in our archives by Dr. Zarowski and Stephen Eisman. That can be a really helpful, supportive piece of information to have.
Thanks, Carrie Lynn.
Thanks.
Shannon, this next question can be for you. Someone says that they can't sleep at night, but they're so tired and they're sleepy or needing to sleep all day. What can they do?
Wow, sleep problems are really common in Parkinson's disease. And, they're really often identified as one of the most troublesome non-motor symptom, and they're related to the changes in the parts of the brain that control sleep. So again, we don't want to blame all of our issues on Parkinson's, but yes, certainly people with Parkinson's do experience sleep problems. There could be other reasons for sleep challenges. It could be like a medication side effect. It could be bladder, just having to go to the bathroom several times a night. could be sleep apnea as well. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details on those topics, just to mention that if you are up going to the bathroom several times a night and that's interrupting your sleep, talk to your specialist about it. Also, we have a really good webinar on it. I believe it was bowel and bladder problems that could be helpful, and just some suggestions there. If you suspect sleep apnea, then check with your family doctor to get some testing on that. And also you can check with your pharmacist about other medication you're on that just maybe some sleep issues may be part of their side effects. So going back to Parkinson's and the sleep problems, there's kind of two main issues with sleep. One of them is insomnia, and the other is called REM sleep behavior disorder. So the insomnia is a little different than the typical insomnia. People with Parkinson's often find they fall asleep quickly, they're just really tired, but they wake up early and they can't get back to sleep. So the other one is called REM sleep behavior disorder, and about 1 in 3 people with Parkinson's may have this condition. It often starts before having any Parkinson's movement problems. So typically when we sleep, the body is paralyzed. We're in that REM sleep. We're in that sort of deep sleep where the dreaming takes place. But in Parkinson's, that paralysis is lost. So then you could act out your dreams. For example, if you're dreaming about being chased by someone or you're fighting someone, you could be moving in bed, like moving around, hitting and punching, maybe shouting. So the danger in that is that you could injure yourself, like falling out of bed, or you could injure the person next to you. So it's really important to talk to your specialist about that, who can look at different treatments for that. So just to go back to the insomnia, so people who do fall asleep quickly but then wake up and can't get back to sleep, there are a few healthy sleep habits that may be helpful. For example, you could keep like a regular bedtime routine and a regular wake time. Try to get as much bright light during the day as possible, avoiding screens before bed, and that can be tricky because we've got screens all around us. Exercise during the day can be helpful. Avoiding caffeine after about 4 p.m. and try to avoid naps later in the day. For example, it's okay to nap, but not too late in the day. That could interfere with your nighttime sleeping. Another thing is not to watch the clock. I think that can just cause a lot more anxiety, just looking at the clock. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. It's 1:30. Oh, it's 2 o'clock and I'm still awake. So try not to watch the clock. And if you do wake up and you can't get back to sleep, it's best just to get up, do something else, something relaxing, whether it's music, reading a boring book, maybe meditation, and then go back to bed and try to fall asleep again. Another really helpful piece of information I heard, and it was Dr. Postman, a webinar we did a few years ago. He mentioned like just looking at your total sleep time you get. So for example, if you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you sleep and then you wake up at 2, you got 4 hours there. You might be awake from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, fall back to sleep at 4 o'clock, then sleep till like 8 a.m. So that's another 4 hours. So you've got 8 hours of sleep, which is actually pretty good. Now it hasn't been consecutive, but 8 hours of sleep is pretty good. And if maybe you had a nap during the day, well, that's 9 hours. So really kind of looking at your total sleep time, that may help in some of that anxiety you feel when you're like, I'm just not getting enough rest. We do have some great resources again, like the Every Victory Every Victory Counts book that we've mentioned several times, our introductory guide, and also a webinar on sleep.
Great, thank you. So Lucia, this next one will be for you. We had quite a few people submit questions about different research projects. So I've consolidated it into one question. How can people find out about and participate in research?
This is a great question. We need more research to get closer to a cure. So there are a few suggestions. First, you can start by asking your specialist. He or she may know of some research that you can participate in. You can also visit our website and you can learn about the current research funding, as well as there's a page on studies seeking participants. This page will list various Canadian trials that are looking for participants. So, of course, call us and we can help you find this information. We also partner with COPN, which is the Canadian Open Parkinson's Network. This is a large-scale national research network. You can register with this network to connect with clinicians and scientists to take part in research and trials all across Canada. You can also search for various trials on clinicaltrials.gov. This website lists clinical trials all across the world, and you can actually narrow your search down to the disease and geographical region. You may also want to listen to our most recent webinar called The 6 W's of Clinical Trials and the Canadian Pipeline. So those are just a few things that, that will help.
Great. Thanks, Lucia. Bryce, I'm going to let you answer this next one. Someone said that they've been feeling really overwhelmed since their diagnosis, and they don't know anybody else who has Parkinson's. So they're asking who can they talk to. They don't think right now that they're quite ready to join a support group yet, but they still need support. What suggestions have you got for someone in that situation?
Absolutely. I mean, what an overwhelming time. I mean, I don't think I've talked to anybody who wasn't overwhelmed when they've been diagnosed. So it's totally natural and normal to be overwhelmed for sure. You know, as we said today, reach out to us, reach out to our 800 number, email us for sure. One of the things too is I know that some people sometimes to go into a group setting right off the bat, especially again, you got diagnosed, you're overwhelmed, you have so many questions, and the last thing you maybe feel like doing is walking into a group of, you know, 10 or 15 people and laying it out there, or you know, it could be intimidating as well. We do have a new program we started this year, and it's called it's like a peer-to-peer support program, and where we match people to sort of one-on-one support, where they get together and they determine, you know, a time where there's virtual, you know, a time or once a week or once every 2 weeks where they get together and just kind of you know, have that support, that one-on-one support. What's been great about it so far, and we've, you know, again, we kind of quietly launched it as we set it out, but we have so many people that are interested in getting that support. So really right now, to be honest, I'll just kind of throw this out there that we're actually looking for some peer-to-peer support people. And I think one of the things is that it feels so great when you get to a place where you've, you know, accepted where you're at, accepted that you have this, and it feels so great to help somebody or to be there for somebody else, or you get this really sense of fulfillment, I guess, if that's for lack of a better word. But the one thing that I think we have to understand is that to be a peer-to-peer support person, you don't have to be an expert. You know, it's lived experience. It's you've been there, done that. And so we are looking for people with that who want to give back, who maybe want to help somebody on a one-on-one basis, you know, individually. It's not a massive commitment of time. You know, it's like a 6-month thing where, and you can determine the time. It's virtual. You can determine it once a week or whatever works for your schedule and the person that you're matched with. And so, you know, we call them mentors, but really it's that lived experience, somebody who just wants to be there for somebody else, maybe help them through some of those tough questions or point them in the right direction. So, I'd encourage you, you know, if you're watching this webinar and you are somebody with that lived experience, give us a call, let us, you know, and sign up to become a peer-to-peer mentor, just to be there for somebody. We have people that are waiting for people now, men and women, all different, you know, and all different stages of Parkinson's, you know, whether it's like, you know, just newly diagnosed or, you know, in whatever stage you've been or however long you had it. So I think it's so much easier, and it almost, to me, it feels like it's a step to a support group. I believe in support groups. I believe in getting as much help and being around people that have gone through what you're going through or going through it at the same time. So it's a good step in where you can maybe just have that one-on-one person, kind of your go-to person to kind of help you get to where you need to go. And then maybe from there you might be more comfortable going into a support group setting. So I'm just going to throw it out there and to say that, you know, if you are somebody that has a lived experience, give us a call. Let us help you, help us help people and become a peer-to-peer mentor. And then again, for the ones that maybe aren't ready for a support group and are feeling overwhelmed and want a little bit more than even just reaching out to us, you know, call us or email us, and we'll get you into the program and hopefully match you with somebody who can help you on a regular basis.
Thanks, Bryce. Shannon, here's a question for you. Someone says they've got Parkinson's and they often experience pain. Is that part of having Parkinson's, and what can they do about it?
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, that's a tricky question. And I do get many people calling me and wanting to talk about pain that they have. So, first of all, we can't blame everything on Parkinson's. It may be related to another condition. So, be sure to ask your family doctor about that. But yes, pain can be part of Parkinson's. About 1 in 3 people living with Parkinson's do have pain, and it certainly does affect the quality of life. And people with Parkinson's who have pain are often feel more depression as well. So Parkinson's disease pain is kind of divided into 5 categories. So the first one would be a musculoskeletal pain. So that's pain that affects the bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons. And it can occur suddenly, can be long lasting, it can occur in one area or in different areas. Then the second type would be neuropathic pain. So that's more like it's a nerve pain, often described as burning or tingling or crawling sensation. The other type is called a dystonic pain. So that is more like a twisting, a cramping, or a spasm. Some people I talk to say, yeah, their toes curl up and it's very painful. That's kind of a dystonic pain. Another type is called akathisia pain, and that's a more of a feeling of restlessness or that inability to sit still. And then the fifth one is a central pain, and that's really caused by a dysfunction that affects the central nervous system. So as you can see, pain is quite complex, and the treatment really depends on what kind of pain that you're experiencing. So speak to your family doctor, your specialist, and what might be really helpful is to keep a little diary of your painful symptoms. So include the time of day that the pain is happening. How long is it lasting? Where is the pain? So where are the location in your body, the body part that's affected? And use really good descriptive words like sharp, constant, is it dull, occasional, throbbing, burning, tingling, cramping. This will really help the doctor narrow down the cause and suggest some treatment options. Sometimes people find with their medication, as it wears off, they may experience some pain. So again, your doctor, once if they see that in this little diary you've made, they can make adjustments to your medications. Never adjust your medication without your doctor advising you on that. Some people find physical therapy, mild exercise, massage, warm baths can be really helpful as a non-medicinal approach. Also, your specialist can suggest some pain medication, could be over-the-counter medication or something else. Again, this is just a really brief summary. If you want to read more about it, Every Victory Counts has some information as well as introductory guide.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you so much to everyone on the information and referral team for such thorough answers to all of these great questions. Carolyn, I think you had something that you wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? I just wanted to touch on because we did receive questions related to medication. So I think what's important for everyone to know, this is an area that many people want to hear about, obviously, but that we're not trained medical professionals. So everyone with Parkinson's is unique and will experience different symptoms, which means the treatment that you're receiving will be geared to your individual specific needs. The reality is that current treatment neither cures Parkinson's nor stops it from advancing. So it's important to work closely with your specialist and pharmacist, actually. They're the medication experts. Shannon had touched on it, and we harp on this all the time. It's really important that you don't make any changes to your medications and prescriptions without first consulting your doctor and your pharmacist. So your doctor can include your specialist and or maybe even your family doctor. Those pharmacists, I think, can be a really often overlooked, but a really valuable resource and member of our care team. And often they can be reached by phone or by popping into the pharmacy with those medical questions or medication related questions, pardon me. And they often will have your full picture of all the stuff that you're taking. So, in summary for us here today, we all feel really strongly in INR that information and knowledge can be both supportive and empowering in your Parkinson's journey. Parkinson Canada and Information Referral Team are here to help you understand the diagnosis, provide you with information, support, and we try to connect you to available community resources. I often say that we try to give you the tools to put into your toolbox. So our goal is to be there every step of the way, from your first symptoms, maybe you're questioning what's going on, to receiving your diagnosis, to understanding and coping with the various stages and challenges that may come with living a life with Parkinson's. So I think it's important to know that we're a resource for credible evidence-based information, and it's really important to make sure that your information resources that you're collecting are from reputable, trusted, proven, and scientifically research-based organizations and sources. That Google's a really lovely tool and really can be helpful, but it can also be a rabbit hole. So organizations like Michael J. Fox Foundation, Davis Phinney Foundation are just a couple of very few examples. Call us with your questions. We can talk through anything that we've shared or connect with any of you and pardon me, we can connect any of you with our support groups that maybe fit you. So that can be in person, virtual, hybrid. That's our job. That's what we're here to do. You can email us at support@parkinson.ca, or you can call us at 1-888-664-1974. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie Lynn and Shannon, Lucia, and Bryce. The service that you provide to the Parkinson's community is immeasurable, and we are so fortunate to know that there are such knowledgeable and caring people on your team. And of course, many thanks to everyone who submitted questions for the team today. I want to remind everyone that if your question was not asked during today's webinar, or if you have additional questions, you can call or email the team directly. Today's webinar attendees will receive a follow-up email with a link to a recording of this webinar, along with the contact information for the information and referral team, as well as links to all of the resources mentioned here today. We invite you to join us for our January 2024 webinar, Cognitive Dysfunction and Parkinson's, taking place on Wednesday, January 17th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Watch your email inboxes in early January for the registration link. On behalf of all of us at Parkinson Canada, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. See you in 2024.